Hi, I'm Adrienne Rogers, Artistic Director for Product Club, and we're going to be working on doing a rich brunette hair color. When you're working with darker hair color, it's really important to make sure that you have different tones happening within the cohesive whole. It brings a real richness and refinement to your brunette client. When you are doing brunettes, if you're looking for a rich, deep brunette, you still want it to have a little bit of dimension and life to it. If you are working on someone who has previous highlights or they have some dimensional hair color going on and you're looking for a varied finish, you're really going to get that pretty automatically. Because if you have a white canvas and you put like a sheer brown paint on it, that's going to look different than a dark brown canvas with a sheer dark paint on it. So when you have multiple tones already happening in the hair, it's pretty easy to get a beautiful, dimensional, rich brunette. If you don't have that already going on and your brunette client is looking for more dimension and more kind of excitement but still being a very rich brunette, I'm going to give you some great tips on how to use different levels of hair color and how to layer them in order to create a beautiful effect. This is the mannequin that I'm going to show you how I created, and you can see it's rather deep, especially in the part area, and then we're going to do different panels moving from a level 3 into a level 5, and then a few secluded pieces of slightly lighter hair. It's not the focus of the color, it's just moving around so that you have a more comprehensive, beautiful, dimensional brunette effect. So we're going to get into it. I'm going to grab my mannequin, and I have previously applied a base color on this mannequin. I did a level 3 with golden undertones, just like a retouch on her base, and I excluded the hairline here. You want to go slightly lighter right on the hairline, and we'll get to that. But this is a great way to start by getting your base on, and then we're going to move through the hair, creating different panels to create different effects. We're going to start from the back, and I am going to part this down the center just for management purposes. It's always just a good idea to have a clean start so that you have a nice surface and an organized visual to go from. It's much nicer to be creative when everything is all set up for you. Okay. Just for management. So I'm going to come in on my first section. I am going to go with a darker tone because I want that depth to be anchored underneath. So on my base was a level 3 with golden undertones, a demi-permanent. And I'm going to section this and try to keep this kind of in that dry zone so I'm not getting those ends into my base color. Now you can do this with all sorts of different dividers to section it. I am going to use balayage film because I find that it works really well kind of wrapping around the head so that you can have a nice clean surface to work on. All right. On the very base hairline here, I did not do the depth, so I'm going to put that in right now. I'm going to stick with that. You want to do that kind of like right before you apply all that other color on each side and underneath. Okay, so I've sectioned this up and out of the way, and I'm going to start with my film. I'm going to tear off a few sheets. I like to use this for stuff like this because it really is going to help with your organization. And in this case, I'm going to drape it around the neck just while I get started. And I'm going to go in with my deeper tone here. So I have created color coding with my bowls. My black brush is for my darkest color. My silver brush is for my level 5, so this one is a level 3. Making sure you get really good saturation. And then I have a high lift blonde that I'm going to use, and that is in my white bowl with my white brush. In between each layer here, you're going to do sheet on sheet. And once this gets more deep into the head, we'll tidy all this up so it's not all over the place. Coming in, doing my next section, and this, I'm starting with my level 3, and then I'm phasing into the 5. So it's going to be slightly more shadowed at the base, and then it's going to be slightly lighter as we move through. So I'm just going to check my base, making sure I had good saturation up here. This is my 3, and now I'm going to come in below that with the 5. Now there's a million different things you can do with this. I could take this in both of my hands. I can add more 3 in the middle. And then I can go with my 5 higher on each side and then down into the center, making sure that you saturate all of this with the level 5. You can create so many different movements and pockets of depth. It doesn't have to be just the root and then the lengths. You can really vary it, almost like a balayage, using the inspiration that we already have going with that, and create different pockets and different points of depth. In between each layer, you want to put the balayage film because you want to make sure that you are separating this hair. And this makes it much easier because it sticks so beautifully, and you don't really need to use foils or mesh strips. It's a nice way to do things in a different way. This will work great with roll foil, depending on how long the hair is, but I actually really like to use the balayage film because it stretches around the head and it covers so much space. So here again, I'm going to go back to my deeper color, and this one I'm going to make sure that I have that base on here, on both sides, and then I'm going to run it through the hair. Now I'm going to take it almost to the ends, and then I'm going to tip out the ends with the 5. These are all very subtle little things, but this is the kind of stuff that really will make your work sing. These subtle little details that when you're doing them, you're like, is this going to matter? It almost always does. Little 5 on the ends, 3 at the base, coming through, 5 on the ends. And in between, you want to get that balayage film. You can see that this doesn't completely cling to itself. It's not like regular wrap. It has a certain amount of cling, but it's not overly active, so it's actually pretty easy to manage. Just swinging around horizontally here. This is really great with redheads as well. You can do these sort of techniques where you vary that tone. I personally really don't like to mess too much with too many tones with a redhead because I love when you really nail the right color. I find it sometimes distracting and it's not actually helping your finished look, but I like to work with multiple levels in the same color family because I think that creates a really nice effect. So it's a good way to go. If you're using a gold, level 5, maybe do a gold 7 also, varying that with different movements within the same color family. Making sure you get good saturation. And then coming through, this is my 5. This film is awesome because it's perforated every 12 inches. So there's such a variety of size choices when you need to make it. You can do very long hair, you can do shorter hair. It's not just for balayage, it's just a barrier. And then if you find that your ends are kind of getting together, you can grab another piece every once in a while and just drop it in because it sticks nicely to itself. So once you really start to build it, it's kind of fun. Now I'm going to come through these sides. I have a decent amount here, and I'm going to neaten this up so that it's nice and organized. You can see you just kind of tweak it down. Once you get enough going, it's pretty easy to manage. It's just really those first few pieces. You can use a balayage clip or some sort of a clip to just kind of hold that in to start, but once you get that network going, you're good. So now I'm going to change my pattern, and I'm going to carve out the sides here and leave them up front. And I'm going to continue blowing up the back, layer by layer. And for this layer, I'm going to start introducing a little bit of a high lift. So I'm double checking my base, making sure there's nothing missed with my 3 all the way around. And then I'm going to do a couple of slants. So I'm going to do my high lift in here just to get some variation, and then allow my 3 to be in here. Going with the low on this one. So in the center, I'm going to drag this down like that, leaving out some of that on the other side. And then on this side, I'm going to come on this side, building out a pocket. It's rather forgiving because of the way that the liquid is. So it's not really going to give you spottiness if you keep moving everything around. I'm in here now with the high lift, and I'm just coming through on one side and through the ends. High lift will lift hair color and regular hair that's not already processed, but it definitely is not a cool tone. So if your client is looking for a cool tone, this is not the way to go. I personally love to use it for stuff like this because it does bring a bit of warmth, and it's not as aggressive as a lightener, so it can just process at the exact same rate as the rest of it. When you start throwing all these different variables in with your chemical that process at different times, it's great strategy to early on make decisions about that so that you can have everything processed at a similar rate. So now I'm going to come between these two and bring up a nice piece here. So my 3 is there, and I'm going to hit this with the 5 just for some variation. Anytime you're going darker and you're not covering gray is always a time for a demi-permanent. It's much gentler to the hair, it gives better shine. It's absolutely the way to go. And then this top one, I'm going to go down further with my 3, just to give it a little bit of depth over that top section. And then through the ends, blending with your fingers. You can kind of push it up and down, you could comb it through. You want to kind of think about maintaining the lightness, so it's something to think about. You don't want to over blend. Now I have this funny little section up here, so I'm just going to use this little tiny thing. There we go. So now I'm going to pick her up and I'm going to start working on the first side. Like I said, you're moving pretty quickly, so you just want to keep it going. And I'm going to move these back. So I've got my back section all done. I'm going to use this area to pull this over, making sure that I have my base color properly applied so that it's nice and consistent. Oops. So I'm going to come in with that. And then you want to think about like how dark that hair is, whether or not you want that close to the face. So this is a little bit further back, so I'm going to go all in with the 3 all the way through. Because if you protect yourself too much, you're not going to end up with enough depth. It's a very fine line between, achieving it to be too dark and just having it not look like you did anything. So the next one I'm coming through, kind of judging how much hair do I have left here. I want to get a light one in, another dark one, and then I want that front one to be light. So I'm just going to go in here with a thinner section. That last one was dark. I'm going to make sure that we've got the level 3 at the base. And then I'm coming in behind that with my 5. And I've kind of prejudged how much hair, because you really don't want that front section to be the darkest tone. Typically the hair that's closest to your face is lanugo hair, and it takes color differently. It can often really make that hair dark in that front section. So just to kind of cover your butt, you want to be aware of that. Now this section is going to be my lighter section, which is a 5, which is not that light, but we're going for a rich brunette. And here I am going in with my 3. Now you can see I didn't do any of the high lift here. I'm just going to skim a few through the top. I'm going to hit these ends with the 5. See, still being cautious. If the ends are overly porous, be really careful with that because porous hair really loves to grab dark. So keep your, the condition of the hair. It's pretty important to how this outcome is. Laying that in, and now because I did not do the hairline in the front with the level 3, I can go in with the 5. The rest of it has been processing, so if it sits on that front for a long time, that's when you get in danger with that color really depositing on that lanugo hair. It's just dying to suck it all up. So I'm gonna come in here on this hairline here with my level 5. The hair will still be dark enough. It's just a nice insurance policy that the client's hair is not going to end up too rich. And I'm going all the way through the ends. Okay, now I'm coming in on my next side. Same thing on this side. I'm carving this out, creating my top section. And you want to move that hair out of the way so it doesn't catch any of the other color. Okay, so I'm doing my sectioning math. I'm going to hit a 3. I'm going to do a 5, a 3, and a 5. So let's pay attention to the spacing when you're doing it and making this call on how you want that to go. Looks well saturated with the 3 there at the base, so I'm just going to come in and do end here. Like I said, this is a little bit away from the face, so you can really get that depth in there. Coming through to section. Now we've got our 5, slightly bigger on the 5s than the 3s. Here's my 5. Running that through. Making sure you get good color saturation. Skinny little 3. You can see I can quickly pull and perforate those sections. Now I'm in, this is my 5. Remember, we didn't do the front. So now we want to make sure to do a good hairline application. And this is 2 levels lighter than my deepest tone. Now we're going to blow through the top. So now this is my last area. I'm going to even this out back here so that it's easier for me by pulling this one section down. And I'm going to do a 5 here. Base looks good. The nice thing about applying the base first, beyond just being done with it and having it be efficient, is that you are able to use it to adhere that balayage film to, and that's just a really good thing. Both of these pieces are the 5s from the front, so I'm not going to worry about the fact that they are all together because it's all level 5. Now I'm looking at where this is going to fall when this falls, and let's say this client parts her hair down the middle. So the client parts their hair down the middle, and you're looking for a little bit of something kind of coming through. So if this is going to get split in half and fall on either side, I want a little brightness on this top section right here so that it falls over the top and you have a nice little stream. So I'm going to take the center of the hair and I'm going to apply some high lift. Right in that middle section. That way when that splits, you're going to get a nice soft effect on either side. And then I'm going to come on the inside with the 5. I'm subdividing that so that I don't mix that. This is pretty fluid. You know, I'm not overly anxiety ridden about my placement within each grouping because it just sort of is soft and pretty. My next section, I'm going to do a skinny 3 because I want to get that depth in there. This is all coming straight back for management purposes. And this is my 3. Coming through. My next is going to be a 5. Watch yourself that you don't get too excited about putting those highlights in, because it's really not about that, right? You're just looking for a little variety, so you want to be somewhat cautious about that. You know what? If I was doing a client, I would take the 3 here now, and so I'm just going to do that. Come up this way, and then I'm going to finish it in the 5 so it softens out on those ends. Varying placement, varying point of origin, all of these little tiny things, when it's too perfect, it's not at its best. A little bit of variety so it doesn't look too machine done is really going to present a bespoke effect. You know, you want each client to have their own individual look. You're not, you know, doing the same thing on everyone. So try to think about each person and what would best work for them. So now I'm going to go a little bit on the skinny side here, because I am going to put a little bit of my high lift again in here. And remember, we're running the high lift kind of down the center, because when that breaks, then you're ending up with it on both sides. Coming up. Running it down the center a little. It's actually very satisfying work. Coming through, I'm just going to pick up that strand, make sure that I have good saturation. And then on either side, hitting it with the 5. This is my final 3. I'm doing a little skinny little 3 all the way back. This one I'm going roots to ends. Because it's so thin, it's going to integrate nicely, but still give you that little depth that you're going to need up there. And this is going to be my final. Coming back, I want to think about what's going to happen here. If she parts it this way, maybe I'll subdivide it a little bit. I'm going to come and put some high lift just toward these ends so we get a little movement. So I'm going to come in with my 5. Come through here. I'm going to do a little bit of a diagonal there. And then I'm going to swing this like a slant. Here, working with my 5, coming down, paying attention to the balance. You don't want it to be exactly the same as the other side, but it should have continuity in general. Should make sense. Typically, a demi-permanent process is between 20 and 30 minutes. You're going to want to let this process, and when you rinse this out, you want to start with cool water or cold water. The whole shampoo doesn't have to happen like that. You just want to start it that way. Because when you have varying tones within the hair, if you use heat, it can adhere to the lighter pieces, and that's never a good thing. Let me get the mannequin and I can show you how this compares to the process. So as you can see, there's lots of depth, and then there's a few little light pieces here and there. They're not all over the place. You can see how that center part, using that middle section, falls down and creates a little bit of movement. This is not a highlight client, but you want to give them a little variation in tone and depth in order to really have a brunette color that has depth and light and really just comprehensive tonality. It's a very lush, high-end look. It's like the cashmere sweater of hair colors.